Our support for the CBC is strong because we believe in Canadian content. It's the only place where you're going to get broadcasting in 8 Aboriginal languages in the north. It's the only network and the only family of networks where you're actually going to get, as a Minister of Official Languages, francophone content in downtown Vancouver and anglophone content in parts of Quebec where otherwise it would not exist. It's a key institution for uniting the country.
I have to say, I'm going to agree with James Moore. CBC united the country by hiring Gille Duceppe to be a political commentator, or to be a commentator. There's a dispute over whether he would comment on politics, and that's why he's gone. If you haven't heard yet, as we were prepping the show, we were still under the understanding that Gille Duceppe was going to be a commentator for CBC. Just after 4 o'clock this afternoon, boom, he's out of there. He's gone. But it wasn't CBC's decision. It was Gille Duceppe's. Well, let's turn to the man that has the skinny on what's going on across La Belle Provence. And still shocked at this news, are you, Eric, that Gille Duceppe's out?
Absolutely. It's weird, eh? It only lasted a few hours and now he's gone. I mean, what a gong show. And, CBC's mandate is supposedly, the first one is to promote Canadian unity.
I think they did, though. They did, because, almost all of us united in saying, what are you, nuts?
But it wouldn't have been the first time, actually, if you think about it. And Duceppe was right when he explained he gave a list of all the separatist politicians who worked for the CBC, like if he needed to convince us that CBC French is a stronghold of separatism. But he gave us a very, very long list, starting by Pierre Bourgault, who was, one of the first separatist leaders in Quebec. René Lévesque worked at the CBC. Bernard Drainville, a current Parti Québécois member of the National Assembly, worked at CBC. Even Raymond Archambault, the current president of the Parti Québécois, is a former CBC reporter as well. So, I mean, CBC has a huge and long history of hiring separatist politicians. It wouldn't have been the first and nor the last.
And you know what? When I was working in Montreal, the nickname for CBC's news world in French, it's called RDI, and people would joke that that it was really Radio des Indépendistes, Radio of the Independents.
Yeah, that's
because that's how prevalent this thinking was and is. Now, you and I work for Quebecor.
Yes.
In our big French paper, the biggest French circulation paper in Montreal, in North America, is Le Journal de Montréal.
Yes.
We've got separatists working there, right?
Absolutely.
People like Joseph Facal write columns.
Yeah, there's a diversity of opinion, unlike the CBC.
But that's our company money, and it's private money, and it's not the taxpayers of Alberta funding Gille Duceppe to go on TV and promote the separatist cause.
Yeah, and now also there's a diversity which we don't really find at the CBC, because if you look and you try to find some commentators a little bit more on the right or a little bit more promoting Canada, you're not going to find any. And that's also the other part. Like, they want our tax dollars money, but they don't want our views. So it's kind of ironic to see what's going on. And but unfortunately, that's another problem with the CBC. We're never going to know which kind of deal was signed between Gille Duceppe and the CBC, and if CBC will have to pay him even if he's not showing up for the show that he was hired for. Because, as you know, CBC is challenging the Access to Information Act, and they don't want, like all the other crown corporations, to have any kind of transparency and show us their books. They do believe that it puts them at a competitive disadvantage. But it's funny, because when they get $1 billion from taxpayers' money, they don't feel that it puts them their competition at a disadvantage. But when they don't want to show their books, then it's because they don't want to be at a disadvantage. So it's always what pleases them.
I always love that, is we just want a level playing field, but we don't want to give up the $1 billion that everybody else doesn't get. I want to bring up quickly some boards showing Duceppe's ability to milk money out of the system. So here we go. He collected a federal paycheck for 21 years while denouncing Canada. He now gets $140,000 a year. That's our estimate in terms of his pension. Canadian Taxpayers Federation estimated he could get $2.9 million in taxpayers' money during his retirement. And now, CBC salary. Not a CBC salary anymore, but there's still a question mark. Are they paying him to go away? And as you just said, we're not going to know, because they don't release that information.
No transparency. And the other thing that you can underline on what you're talking about in terms of the pension plan, it's going to be the most generous pension ever for a member of the of Parliament in Canadian history, other than former prime ministers. So Gille Duceppe is the wealthiest pensioner of federal politics. It's kind of ironic when you think about it.
Well, it's revolting, is what it is.
Well, yes and no, because on the other hand, he's been elected. I mean, he's been elected democratically.
He's elected, but for all of these guys, and not just Duceppe, for all of them, they put in $1 into their pension plan. We put in $5.
Yeah.
For all of them. What other employer puts in $5 for every $1 you put in? None.
No one would do that. I mean, yeah, that's disgusting to have such a generous pension plan on taxpayers' back that nobody else could afford. That's another question. But compare the fact that, you know, that because he's a separatist, he's getting more out of it. It's not, you know, I mean, some people in Quebec voted for him and he has a right to do it. But still, it's ironic to see that his whole life he got, you know, a maple leaf flag on his paycheck, and that he wanted to have another one with the CBC with a contract he just signed with them. It's kind of ironic too to see all of that. It seems that you know, they don't like Canada, but they like the flag when it's on their paycheck.
Now, what do you make of the all of the other media outlets? When it was Nicole Turmel, they said, tut, 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 don't worry about it, that she was a separatist. Everyone's a separatist in Quebec. We've got to be used to this. It's not a big deal that she wants to lead a Federalist party.
I told you that.
And be a separatist. and be a separatist party member at the same time. I think it's going to be the same reaction with Duceppe. Oh, Big Bad Sun Media chased him out, or hillbillies in Alberta chased him out, and this isn't right.
Well, he's going to be perceived for a little while in Quebec now as a victim. You know, the separatist movement is going to say that he was the victim of a campaign in English Canada to try to attack his credibility and the fact that it was CBC and blah blah blah. So for sure, there's going to be they're going to try to play the fact that he's a victim. I don't know if it's gonna work or not, but the separatist movement is so desperate these days in Quebec. I'm sure they're going to try it.
Okay, here's my estimate on what he would have been making if this deal had gone through. And you tell me if there's another media outlet that would have paid the same for a once-a-week appearance, which is what we're told this would be. $50,000 to $100,000 minimum, sliding scale, I've been told most likely, based on how these contracts are, it'd be $75,000 to $100,000. That's more, if it's in that latter range, that's more than the average Canadian family makes with two people working, for the most part. And then if he did extra appearances, like they called him up to comment on something else, he'd get another $750, another $500, another $1,000. It depends on how good a negotiator was. All these are real numbers from real CBC contracts. Is there any other media outlet that would pay that much for a part-time employee to show up once a week and just say, hey, here's what I think?
I know. Look, I think I know very well the competition in Montreal, the radio station that is #1 in front of the CBC, and I can tell you that what they're paying is like between $100 and $200 for an appearance. So it gives you an idea of the difference and the gap. It's not. We're not talking about the same ballpark at all. Like it has nothing to do what people earn in the private sector compared to the CBC. I mean, and all sorts of political events. Brian, you've been covering them for a little while. When you go there and you see that half of the crowd is the CBC, among the media, does it make sense? When you see how many people they hire just for, whatever the event is, their crowd is always like 4, 5, 6 times more bigger than any other private network, and that's just the way it is. We're kind of used to it. This is the CBC way of wasting your money.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think they're going to waste it by giving Gille Duceppe $30,000 to $50,000 to go away quietly, but we'll never know. Eric Duhaime, thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much, Brian.
Well, make sure that you send us your thoughts on this, but also you can contact the Prime Minister's office. Let them know what you think about this, what you think about the cozy relationship CBC has. PM@gc.ca or PM@pm.gc.ca. You can email that and email byline@sunmedia.ca. We'll be back.